Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education meeting, the Truth and Taxation hearing first for Wednesday, November 29th, 2023 at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order with a roll call, please.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Albert.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller. Absent. Weedman.
Here.
All right, that's quorum. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, I need a motion to approve the taxation hearing agenda, please.
I'll move.
A second.
Okay.
Miller. Oh, absent, sorry. Albert.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix. And Nash.
Aye.
All right, thank you. I will turn it over to Mr. Wildman.
Thank you. This is the public hearing of the 2023 property tax levy. It's the presentation of CCSD 46. It actually serves as the specific hearing, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as well. So next slide, please. District's mission, empowering learners, creating equity, cultivating community. This is our largest funding source, so it goes to promote all those different things. Next slide, please. Here is our finance goal from the strategic plan. This evening, we will be clarifying financial practices with transparency, and obviously 4:20, which determines our minimum fund balance of 25 to 30%. Next slide, please. So here's the timetable of the process through today. This evening, we have the Truth in Taxation hearing, and you will, as a board, approve the levy, hopefully. And after that, we were able to file it, the adopted budget with the county. Next slide. Okay, here are the changes since the tentative levy was presented on October 25th. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time on this one because it's beyond my control. Our debt service has increased by $8,919. So in your board packet, we have a supplemental levy resolution as an action item. This was drafted by Chapman and Cutler, our bond counsel. This is because when we sold our DSEB bonds, our working cash bonds in 2022, how they were structured, we actually have to do a supplemental levy each year to make sure that the actual correct amount is levied by everybody to make sure we actually levy the correct amount. So going forward, for the whole purpose of those bonds, we'll have a supplemental levy that's filed every year with the county. There are no changes from the district. Next slide, please. So here are our revenues taken from the recently approved budget back in September. It's important to understand and remember the heavy reliance on local property taxes in our budget. The highest amount being 59%, and the second amount being 32% from state. Next slide, please. Here are our budget expenditures. I talked about this in the tentative. I'll just go through it one more time. 75% of our budget goes towards people-related services, salaries, benefits of our staff, and purchase services such as student transportation, food service, and night cleaning of our buildings. Next slide, please. Key terms, before we go through the levy process one more time, I want to highlight a few of the important terms. We have the tax levy itself, which is the amount that the district raises from the property tax. We have the property tax extension limitation law, commonly referred to as the tax cap. And we have to follow a tax cap because we're a tax cap district, and that is 35 ILCS 200/18. It's my favorite act. We have the extension itself, which is the total amount of taxes which are billed and collected, which is also determined as the growth in the levy, and that is limited by PTEL. We have CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, which is an inflationary indicator, which we have to follow. And then we have the equalized assessed valuation, which refers to all the assessed value within the district. Next slide, please. So PTEL, just mentioned it, limits the amount of the increase of the taxes to the lesser of 5% or CPI. And this is called the limiting rate. So the PTEL limiting rate is different from the property tax, which you all see on your actual individual tax bills, which is actually the total amount of levy divided by the equalized assessed value. That's the tax rate, which changes every year. I talked a little bit about that at the tentative because we were during assessment season. So we had the assessment person talking about that. You have the changes in the EAV, which determine that portion alongside the extension, which is the second component in the tax rate. And then the final amount is determined as the extension, which is determined by the Lake County Clerk, which applies the tax cap. So next slide, please. Again, some of the calculations that we use to extend. We actually know the last equalized assessed valuation of our property, and we actually have an estimate which is given to us each year. It's actually a 9.9% increase, which the county is given to the district. We know the prior extension, and we know the CPI of December of 2022, which was 6.5%. Again, we have tax cap, we can only levy to 5%. And then we have an estimate of new property, which is $885,000. Next slide, please. CPI, here is CPI history over the last 10 years. A CPI of 6.5 is above the 5 and the 10-year averages, which makes sense because we know we're living through heightened inflation. The current CPI for October of 2023 was actually 3.2%. So when I presented at the tentative, it was 3.7. We are actually trending downwards. The rate of change over the year is trending downwards. We've gone from 3.7 to 3.2. And again, the December of 2023 CPI will determine the levy for tax year 24. Next slide, please. Here's our new property over the last 5 years. Again, our estimate of $885,000 is below what we've been kind of trending at over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. I have to do this one legally. This is Public Act 102-80895. Came into law. I have to disclose the district's fund balance. And as of June 30, we have outstanding debt of $46,112,432. So $46 million. Next slide, please. So why do we limit to PTEL? Because we're a Tier 1 district, and we're only at 65% adequacy, and we have a funding gap of about $17 million. Actually, it's 66%. We just moved a little bit. ESSA funding is non-recurring, so we used everything that was available to us over the last 3 to 4 years, and those funds will be fully expended by September of next year. And we're all very aware of our ability to not fund our capital from our operating. So we have our long-range plans which need to be funded as well. Next slide, please. So this is the culmination of the summary. This is the levy request itself, represents a 5.9% increase over the extension. It's slightly less if you include debt service and our CEDAL IMRF. We actually pay the IMRF portion of CEDAL, which actually decreased this year, allowing us to levy a few extra dollars in the education fund for ourselves. So we're asking for $41.9 million. What we actually believe we'll get, because we're limited by that PTEL, the tax cap, $41.6 million. Next slide. Thank you. I'd like to invite any questions from the board.
I just have one question for you. Back where you did the estimated new growth,
Yep.
you had actual new growth for most of the years. You had estimate for this year. How close was the estimate on those other years versus what we got?
It's pretty close. Lake County you're very lucky to live in Lake County because this county has a very, very good system of accumulating EAV growth, getting it to school districts, and those estimates being pretty close. So I can tell you, having worked in Lake County before I came here too, for 5 years, they're good. Lake County's estimates are pretty good. Now, what happens afterwards, though, after that estimate's given to you, there's all the other stuff that happens. You know, there are commercial entities which make, do PTABs, and they do all those, and those are all affected in terms of that new growth, and, you know, there is some changes, but on the whole, I could tell you that it's pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weldon.
Thank you.
That concludes the Truth and Taxation hearing. I need a motion to adjourn the Truth and Taxation hearing, please.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, that meeting is adjourned, and we'll move directly to the regular Board of Education meeting. We're the same day, same date, and same time, same place. I need a call to order to the regular board meeting, please.
All right. Mack,
Here.
Braden,
Here.
Nash,
Here.
Albert,
Here.
LaCroy,
Here.
Miller, absent, Weedman,
Very good. Quorum is still established. We did do the Pledge of Allegiance in the previous meeting, so we'll move straight to a motion to approve the regular agenda this evening, please.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Do we have any public comments? No public comments. We can move straight to, we don't have any presentations. We can move, just chugging right along. We'll move on to board reports, and I'll start with Mrs. Nash this evening.
I do not have a board report this evening.
Very
Dr.
good.
Mack?
Mrs. Braden, I'll go through you guys first.
No report this evening, thank you.
Okay.
Nada.
Nada.
I feel like I have to now.
Yeah, no.
We're going to report out on our III conference.
Yeah, I was
in
going
a
to say,
subsequent board meeting. That's
Yep.
what I just wanted to talk
Yep.
about that a little bit, but I'll save it for the next time.
yep, me too.
I had a great Thanksgiving.
Good. Mrs. Albert?
Just want to say that the fundraiser that the Foundation 46 had on November 9th was a huge success, and want to thank all the community members and foundation members who supported that effort. And a reminder that the Tom Meskel Commitment to Education Award deadline is tomorrow, November 30th. And I have a little QR code if you need reference to that. And then lastly, this weekend, I'll be attending the IASB, IASA Lake Division Legislative Breakfast. So if you have any questions or comments you want me to bring to that, let me know.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one short thing. I received a couple of documents from Mark Tepper, who's the director, one of the directors in the Lake Division of the IASB, and he's in Killdeer Countryside 96. He sent along the annual report for the IASB, as well as an update from the board member, Sean Kalaki. If we remember, he had collected some comments on his recent trip to the Federal Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C. So I just got these two documents, so I'll forward it to the board for review. And every time I get something from Mr. Tepper, I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of it too, and that's all I have. All right. That moves us to Dr. Glickman, the superintendent's report.
Certainly, and I'm actually going to hand it off to two cabinet colleagues. Dr. Lorenzo first has a couple of topics, and then we'll hand it over to Mrs. Gluck.
Thank you, Dr. Glickman. I was excited to hear what you were going to call us. I'm like, so I'd like to share that our wonderful teams had our three really required annual meetings. One being the District Threat Assessment Committee that is also wrapped into our response to restraint and timeout reduction. That is a plan that we have to develop annually with a team of similar team members. So we've combined that into one committee, and that includes the sergeant from Round Lake, the sergeant from Grays Lake, a school social worker, a psychologist, a gen ed teacher, paraprofessional, and the high school guidance counselor. And we spent time reviewing our district threat assessment procedures, and we also reviewed the behavior crisis procedures that we have in our district, and then went through what our reduction plan is this year and reviewed that for next year. The second committee group is the Concussion Oversight Committee. And as required by board policy, we need to convene that meeting, and that includes a couple of district nurses, and we also included the Grays Lake Central's NATA board certified athletic trainer. And we reviewed our district paperwork surrounding concussion protocols, and then our return to learn and return to play procedures. And then lastly, I'm going to kind of read some of this because I don't want to butcher this wonderful project. Grays Lake's Community Consolidated District 46 Early Childhood Program received an email from Sean Noble, who is a state director for the Fight Crime, Invest in Kids program, which represents a group of 360 Illinois police chiefs, sheriffs, and state's attorneys who support strengthening early childhood investments as a way of also strengthening public safety. Their activities include occasionally holding what they call COP and TOTS events at local preschools and child care centers. They will be coming to our early childhood center on December 7th from 9 until 10:15. And we want to invite you all to join us. So I'm just curious if anyone's interested. They are going to spend the first portion of their time reading to our students in our classrooms. And then we are going to gather together as a group to have some conversation. And that conversation includes a presentation by that group, and then some conversation around what are our needs in early childhood, and what more can they support from their advocacy. And I was just going to list to you the participants who are coming out to be with us. We have the Lake County State's Attorney, Eric Reinhardt, Grays Lake Police Chief, Phil Perlini, Lindenhurst Police Chief, Thomas Jones, Gurnee Police Chief, Brian Smith, and then Deputy Chief Gianni Giamberduca, if I got that right, I hope, for the Lake County Sheriff, on behalf of Lake County Sheriff John Eidelberg, Commander Aladinak from the Round Lake Park Police, on behalf of the Police Chief from Round Lake Park, Dan Birch. We also have our State Senator, Mary Edley Allen, and State Rep Joyce Mason, and lastly, our State Rep, Laura Favor-Diaz. So we're really excited, and we hope any of you can join us. I'm not sure if you can or if you're willing to commit this evening, but please let me know so we can be prepared for you. That's all I have, Dr. Klickman. Oh, I'm going to pass it over to Amy Kluck.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening. I just have one thing to share with you this evening, and that is that next week, December 4th, we will be starting our second round of NWA MAP testing. This is a slight change from where we've done it in the past. We had done it in January in the past. We're moving it up for a couple of reasons, but one is just to provide updated data related to proficiency and growth, to make some instructional decisions and ensure that we're providing interventions for students that need interventions on a timely basis. So we're going to be doing that with students in kindergarten through 8th grade, so all of our students will be participating in that starting next week.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. That moves us to the consent agenda. I just need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the personnel addendum report that was sent to us earlier this afternoon.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
All right, we are up to our safety and security presentation next under unfinished business. I'll turn it back over to the administration.
Okay, this is the annual update from the Safety and Security Committee, SSC as we call ourselves. Next slide, please. Again, mission, really working on cultivating a community of safety and security. As we meet, we have members of the administration, clearly. We have outside stakeholders. We have police who come to those meetings, and we also have PSAP and teachers. So we really have a great cross-section of everybody within the community. Okay, purpose of the committee, just to remind everybody, this is what we came up with when it was created: strengthen the consistency of safety and security procedures in each school and throughout the district, to make the best decisions we can by using research and best methodology in the area of safety and security, to update our standard operating procedures for each event scenario, and to make the informed decisions and implement recommendations to you. Next slide, please. Backbone of every good committee is board policy. We're governed by safety, board policy 4:170, that has safety and security, school safety drill plan, and our annual review that we have to do each year. And we also reference targeted school violence program, board policy 4190, which we just heard about. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Diaz.
We have had a productive and exciting year and just wanted to highlight some of our celebrations. So the first one is that security cameras at Park are being installed this week. We've had installation of new classroom doors and updated door hardware at Woodview. We have updated district-wide radios, which are walkie-talkies, so schools can communicate within the school building, but then also to all the other schools in the district, which is pretty nice. We have done safety scenario exercises, also known as like tabletop activities, as a leadership with our local law enforcement, and we have a second one scheduled. We have also updated secured internet, but I'm going to pass that to Amanda.
So as I've shared with you, we have updated our wireless infrastructure, and this plays into safety and security because it allows us to segment our network to keep our traffic inside and keep the guest traffic segmented so they can't access our critical systems. And as a reminder, that was part of the cybersecurity audit that we did with Forward Edge. We've also implemented MOSL, the Mobile Device Management System, and that makes our whole network and environment safer because it allows us to secure the password to the Wi-Fi so that it doesn't become open, and it allows us to keep devices up to date more easily. And lastly, it helps us to lock down a device and keep data secure if something were to happen where a staff member were to lose their device.
Just wanted to speak about Alice, which is usually one of the main reasons that we became a safety and security committee, was to update and become an Alice certified district. So this is our second year. We have begun updating our safety binders that reflect Alice practices such as lockdown and evacuation. All of our new staff and have been Alice certified for the 23-24 school year. We've also begun our Alice drills. We've had a walking field trip to the rally point, and we are updating our reunification plans with local law enforcement.
So over the past year, the Safety and Security Committee was evaluating and making recommendations for an emergency response system. So an emergency response system is what allows community members within our system to communicate with each other in an emergency and also to communicate with first responders. So there was a lot of conversation, and ultimately that group recommended Blue Point. Blue Point is a pull-down system, so similar to, think about a fire alarm, right, where anybody can pull a fire alarm and the fire department comes, right, Mr. Weidman? Yeah, great. So that was the system that was recommended. It's an expensive system. I'm sure no one is surprised to hear that, but we were moving in that direction because we knew we needed to do something to enhance our safety. However, just as all of those decisions were being made, we also became aware that the Lake County Regional Office of Education wanted to do something to enhance safety throughout the county and our school districts. And so they made available to our schools, all of our school districts, a free emergency response system. That's an app. It's actually called Stop It, which is an unusual name, Stop It, but it's an app. And so through this app, well, we'll talk about it in a moment, but through this app, people can communicate with each other and communicate with emergency response entities as well. That is available to us through a grant that the ROE wrote for the next 2 years. And so our school district determined our next steps based on all of that information. Next slide, please. All right, so the recommendation now is to move forward with Stop It because, as stated earlier, it is free to us. It does what we need for it to do, and then we can continue after the 2-year free trial period to assess whether or not that's a system that we want to move forward with. We'll talk more about what else we might do after 2 years in a moment. But Stop It will allow all staff members to have access through their district device, so think their laptops, along with having the opportunity to choose whether they might also want to put it on their personal cell phones. We can't require staff members to put such an app on their cell phones, but what we learned from our investigation in Stop It is that about 80% of staff members in other school districts that have used it have selected to put it on their own devices. It's an emergency management and mass notification system. It provides an instant alert for administrators and all staff that notifies the nearest 911 center if needed. It allows for two-way communication during incidents, should they happen. It's got a safety alert function, so that means that users are prompted to check in about their safety in an emergency. And it also allows communication with other districts in the region. This actually is just for the superintendent, where I would have a function that if there is an emergency happening in another school district, we would become aware of that emergency and could assess whether or not it was something that we also needed to be concerned about, be able to be in touch with our local law enforcement. Next slide, please. All right, so I've just told you the story of how we were going in one direction, and now we've switched directions for the time being. That was a decision that was based on our finances and the knowledge that we could enhance the safety for the time being without this significant hit on our budget. For that reason, board, you know in a little while you're going to be voting on a resolution for referendum. To that resolution, we have now added safety and security because the intent would be that if we are able to pass a referendum, we would be able to use some of those funds to further enhance our safety and security in our school district. That might mean continuing down the path that we had planned, bringing on Blue Point or another system. Who knows what the future may hold in terms of those systems, because they're constantly being updated and new vendors are coming aboard and coming into school districts. So we could go with that option. We could also choose to continue to fund an app or another kind of a system. So we're looking at moving forward with an emergency response system that would be self-funded after the 2-year ran out, And also, we want to continue purchasing more security cameras from our schools. We did GMS last year. You heard a little while ago that we we're just beginning Park. There are plans in place for Frederick, but we do not have funding in place for our elementary buildings, our K through 4 buildings. We'd like to enhance the safety and security of those buildings as well by adding security cameras to those buildings. Next slide, please. So I'm going to pass this on to, here we go. Yeah, I'm just looking. I was trying to remember who was going to do it. Yes, to Mr. Ochoa. Yeah, I was trying to remember who was doing it.
So our next steps include installing the cameras over at Park Campus, as well as the implementation of the Stop It app that we just talked about, phone system training for emergencies. So we do have a new phone system, and we would like to, make sure that we can respond in emergency situations, and also ongoing safety scenario exercises. That's something that we're going to continue with our leadership team and our staff. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Ms. Nash?
Thank you for the presentation this evening. I wonder, do we explore opportunities to gain scale throughout our broader community and partner with 127, for example, when we're looking at purchasing equipment, because they're doing the same things, right? Even when I listen to you guys talk about the ALICE training and drills, they're doing the same thing. Is there cross-pollination opportunity? I know some of our kiddos, the 8th graders, go over for trips and things like that. Do we do any of that type of synchronization?
So 127 is an ALICE district, and CLC is an ALICE district, ALICE organization. So when we were selecting which methodology to go with, that wasn't the most important thing, but it was a deciding factor knowing that our kids matriculate to 127 with that methodology learned here. In terms of kind of savings, in terms of being able to purchase things, they've also already purchased Bluepoint, but that is specific to their buildings. It's not something that we're able to really leverage, but we are able to see that. I think they fully implemented it already, and I believe CLC as well. So we are looking at best practices and looking at our partners to be able to do that. We are working with Round Lake 116. They do have a director of security, I believe his title is, who has been helping us with several of the decision making in terms of reunification plans. So we are constantly working with neighboring districts, which is really important, because if, as Dr. Glickman mentioned, a neighboring school district does go into lockdown, if we have similar reunification plans, which look remarkably like ours because we've used theirs, and we vetted them correctly for all the right reasons, and we for all best practices, standing on the shoulders of other giants on this, I think it makes sense that we do that, and we are actively doing that. So 127 has a director of security as well. So we're using our neighboring districts to get to where we need to be in terms of all these areas of safety and security.
Are substitute staff ALICE trained as well?
Do we have,
Or teachers?
Yes. Can we talk about that? Thanks, Amy.
Sure. So last year they were invited to attend our training, so some have been trained. Many are returning subs, and so we will offer again another opportunity for them to be trained for this school year.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Thanks. Next one is me. I'll just stay here.
The funding proposal update next
Yes.
with Dr. Glickman.
There are no slides, Brandon. He's looking at me like, did I forget something? No, there's no slides. This will be very brief. Board of Education, very shortly, you'll be voting on the resolution to bring a referendum to the community. So I am speaking now as if you vote to do that. So there's really no other way to have the conversation. First of all, I very much want to thank all members of the community task force, the citizens task force that put enormous amount of time and energy into bringing recommendations to the board. So I hope some of those folks might be listening or might listen in the future and know that our team is extremely grateful. Board of Education, if you do vote to bring forth a referendum to our community, our school district will begin very soon, will resume, I'll put it that way, will resume a lot of communication to the community about the needs of the school district. We have kind of preemptively scheduled, but not yet announced, meetings at all of our schools that would happen after winter break. Those would be for community members. At all of the schools in July, that will help, not at all, January and February. So that's Mr. Wildman and I taking the show back on the road. We have a variety of community groups that we will be contacting to ask, can we come to you? Or would you like to come to us so that we can continue providing information? We also would be updating all of the written materials that have been shared with community in the past with new information, certainly including this new area of safety that would be now included in the referendum question, along with just taking off the we're proposing to do this, and instead we are moving forward with referendum, and here's what that's all about. And to that end, we're also in process of communicating with the video company that we worked with to create that video that a few of you were a part of, just to, again, add in the safety information and to make sure that it's clear that the referendum is a reality, no longer a proposal. So, and then quite a few updates on the website as well that kind of follow those same structures. That's it right now for this update, unless the board has any questions. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Goodman. All right, that brings us to the action items section, which is I need a motion to approve the 2023 tax levy in the total amount of $41,903,246. Do I need to read each of those bullet points separately for you? Or does it encompass all of those little ones that are under that
With all
motion?
the resolutions, yes.
Those are all the little resolutions in there? I do need to? Not read them, okay. Okay. So I need a motion to approve what I just said.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay.
Weedman,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
A motion passes. The next motion on that list is a motion to approve the 2023 district audit as presented to us.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on that one?
I'll just make a quick comment. So it was brought up in our finance committee earlier. Chris and Marco have done a good job over the last couple of years of cleaning up all the deficiencies that were there. We had a clean audit report and no recommendations for any changes from the auditors. So good job for that. But we reviewed the audit kind of stuff this evening at the finance committee.
Thank you, Mr. Weedman. Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, and the final motion is I need a motion to approve the resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of increasing the limiting rate for the district to the voters of the district at the general primary election to be held on the 19th day of March, 2024.
I'll move. I'll second.
Any additional questions? Okay.
LaCroix,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Motion approved. All right, thank you, everybody. On to the new business. This is a discussion of we had a little bit of discussion of this at the last meeting, but an upcoming board workshop for us to do through IASB. And in the board packet was a link showing the options that are available to us. I do think the one that seems to be the one we've kind of been orbiting around a little bit is the monitoring district performance. Saying what we mean and doing what we say, which involves discussions around, deeper discussions around board policies, since we've been spending a lot of time on the board policies, getting a better understanding of how those work as the tool of the board in relations with what the district is doing and beyond. So I'm assuming this would be happening after the winter break, looking in January or February maybe? Or,
Definitely not before.
Well, yeah, definitely
So
not
yes.
before, yeah.
So I think we would be working with with Laura Martinez as to when she could schedule it.
Yep.
So yes, it would be
Okay.
after the break.
Okay, yeah. Are there any comments or questions about anything else? We've done a few of these in the past, I think. So this seems to be one that, given all our conversation about policy recently, might be good for us. But floor is open.
I'll just say it seems to make sense. I think at the last two workshops, we ended up with cards that tell us, that remind us to look, is there a policy about this? And I feel like a lot of materials given to new board members even reflect the idea that a main part of our job is to monitor with policy. So just want to make sure we're doing a good job of that.
Okay. We can reach out to
So
Laura
Sue and I will start working on
Yeah,
that. Sure.
go with that. All right.
Okay.
Perfect. That brings us to topics for future agenda items.
All right, I'll tell you what I have. So the December 13th meeting, we will have a presentation from GMS. We have student representatives coming to the board meeting. I can't tell you the name of the group because they're still working on the name, but they're very excited. I went and met with them yesterday morning, I believe it was, and Mr. Smith has been working very hard with this group of 8th graders who are incredibly motivated to talk about what could be possible for GMS, and they're excited to talk with all of you about some things, and they're all jostling for a spot at the board table. So I think we'll have 3 students at the, not board members, I've told them they can't vote, 3 8th graders at the table in a few weeks, so we'll have to make space. Then I think, Mr. Wildman, is it possible we might have an MOU regarding our reunification plans? We're not sure yet, is that right?
I'm hoping so.
You're hoping so, okay.
Yes.
So it's a question mark. We'll do our kind of annual first round of student fees discussions. I think we have some students who will be here at the table who will want to participate in that. And that will include some information about recommended changes in student fees regarding Chromebook covers, lost or damaged Chromebook covers, so we'll be talking about that as well. Then I think we have 2 matters that are related to III, I think. So I have written down selecting the IASB resolution delegate for the upcoming year. I think you all wanted to do that next time, is that right? Yep, okay. And then am I hearing I think you talked about doing December 13th, some kind of a roundtable about what we learned at III. Is there a particular structure you want to use for that?
Yeah, and that seems to be the easiest way to do it.
So just do it during, so you don't need it to be an agenda
No,
item,
I
you're
think
just
we do
gonna
it
do
at
it
board
as
reports.
board
Yep.
reports?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, that's what I have for the 13th of December. I can move forward into January in a moment, but does anyone have anything else for December that they're thinking? Okay. Then in January, we may have a science presentation, but we're not sure yet. We're hoping. Then Mrs. Gluck is going to do a standard assessment overview for you boards, so you'll learn a little bit more about the standardized assessments that we give and some recent information regarding our progress. And then, board, I've communicated with you a bit about this social media lawsuit and the potential, and it's really up to the board, for the board, our school board, to participate in this lawsuit against some of the large social media companies and their impact on students. And so my understanding from speaking with some board members is that you'd like to discuss that at the board table. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll do that in January. And then I'm just going to roll us forward to let you know that February, always with the months. I don't know why I have this problem. July, I don't know. Fall. February 7th, the first board meeting in February, we'll do our a policy committee meeting. So plan on 5 o'clock for policy if you're in the policy committee, and that does give us time for another policy committee meeting at the second meeting in February if we need it, in case board members want to have a second conversation, because those policies are due back to IASB at the end of February. So that's what I have. That brings us through February right now. All right, that's it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Glickman. Do we have any public comments? Okay. All right, we do have a short closed session this evening, so I do need a motion to enter into closed session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2, paragraph C1. Number 1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. And number 2, issues regarding collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. We do not anticipate coming back into an open session, so once we adjourn into closed session, that will be, we'll adjourn out of that. So I need that motion.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay.
LaCroix,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to go into closed session. Have a good evening.